My fall knitting was all over the place, but I did get a lot done. Let's see if I can be a little more focused with my winter knitting plans. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. You are watching my winter knitting plans, and if you'll remember last year, I put this out a little earlier. I am releasing this one at the end of November, beginning of December, and I believe last year I might have shared it at the beginning of November, and I found that that was just too far of a stretch from fall to spring. So this time I'm doing my winter knitting plans a little later, and I'm going to do my spring knitting plans a little earlier so that hopefully there won't be such a big gap between my seasonal knitting plan updates. I was all over the place for my fall knitting plans, and I'm going to have to restructure this video compared to my other seasonal knitting plans simply because it would just be too chaotic to look at what I accomplished in the fall and then go into the plans for the winter, because a lot of what I have are whips that are continuing. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to talk about all the projects that I finished in the fall and then go into the whips that I'm working on, which are both updates to my fall knitting and plans going into the winter. Now, I did something really fun over the fall. I don't know if I mentioned this in my fall knitting plans video, but I do remember saying that I had so many whips that I wanted to work on. I actually came up with a really fun idea for how to get progress on all of my whips simultaneously. I started doing a video series called Dungeons and Knitting, which I have posted here on YouTube as well as over on my Instagram page. I upload it first to YouTube, and then I tend to upload it onto Instagram either like 10 to 12 hours later, sometimes a day later, just because I want to give YouTube the priority with that. In case you're unfamiliar with that video series, here's how it works. I have a list of about 8 whips, and I roll a D&D die to decide which of those whips I work on, and another one to decide how long I work on it for. So I have a D8 to decide which whip, and I have a percentile die, or I think this can also be a D10 because it's a 10-sided die, and I roll to see how long I work on them for. Now, this was so successful at getting me to work on my whips that I've actually entered what I'm calling Season 2 of Dungeons and Knitting, because from my first list, I have finished 4 out of the 8 whips. And I've also been able to work on some of my whips that didn't get rolled at all because this project just inspired me to want to work on my various whips. So I've actually finished at least one whip that never got rolled, but I was feeling very inspired to work on because of this system of gamifying my knitting. So I've now entered level 2, and I have new projects added to the list, either ones that I've casted on, or in the case of one, it's something that I want to cast on, but I haven't yet. So that's been really helpful with getting me to work on my whips, and I feel that that's definitely a key factor in allowing me to finish so many things in the fall. Now let's go through my finished objects from my fall knitting plans, and in some cases, a couple things that I don't even think made it into the fall knitting plans that are now complete. And I'm going to go chronologically, starting with Doyle's Emotional Support Chicken. You have not heard of this because I did not talk about it in my fall knitting plans, because my husband watches my videos sometimes, and I did not want to ruin the surprise. But I knitted Doyle an emotional support chicken. It's a little scrawny. I do need to stuff it even more because I knit this completely in secret, and I stuffed it when I was at work, and I thought I brought enough stuffing with me. Clearly I did not, so this is kind of like a thin and lumpy chicken. So I think I do want to add more stuffing to it because it can really squish down, which the emotional support chickens are supposed to be really robust and cuddly. Sorry if I hit the mic there. But I knit this using some very special yarn. The main colors are all from an advent calendar that I got a couple years ago from Teeny Button Studios, who's based in Louisiana. And they are from her Advent series that was called In the Stacks, and they were all book-themed colors. 3 of the colors were all different shades of dark colors, and one of them was light. So I marled the 3 colors together, and I held them together for the body. And the lighter color I used as the contrasting stripe, and I held that triple just so that it would match the size yarn, because Doyle wanted a chicken colored chicken. And I feel like I did a good job of making a chicken colored chicken. Like this one's very like kind of iridescent, kind of like their feathers can be like lots of different colors. And then I did just a red comb and a yellow beak. I could have done the wattle, but I find the wattle's just a little tricky and I don't really care for it. I don't think it really needed the wattle. So I left that out. But I did a second emotional support chicken that I did do the wattle because it was a sample knit for my friend Madison of Florange Apparel. And I'm going to include photos of that one because I don't have that with me because, like I mentioned, it was a sample knit. And you'll notice that it's a lot different in color to Doyle's chicken. Where Doyle wanted a chicken colored chicken, Madison wanted a black and neon chicken, and I was very happy to oblige. I thought that was such a fun project to work on. And again, I didn't show it off very much because the colors hadn't been announced yet at the time that I was working on it, so I didn't really share it very much. But here it is in all its glory in the black and the neon, and it's just super, super fun. These are really fun projects to make if you need like a gift knit or something like that, or if you just want to make something nice and cuddly just to have around your home. They're great at scrap busting as well because it is meant to be a worsted weight yarn, but you can very easily hold some fingering weight together. For Doyle's, I held the 3 strands together just because I wanted to use the yarns from that advent calendar, but for Madison's, I only held her yarn double, and that was perfect for meeting gauge. I honestly found working with the 3 strands together was just a little too thick and kind of made it a little harder to knit. It was quite stiff gauge. I liked the 2 strands held together much better. But I think I'm a little chickened out right now because these were my 2nd and 3rd chickens that I knit. I previously made one 2 years ago, I believe. And as fun as they are, I've done a couple in a row, so I'm ready to take a break from knitting chickens. I have one other project that I finished in the fall that I don't currently have with me, and the recipient is going to be getting it this week. It is the Baby Messenger Henley, and I knit this for my cousin's newborn baby. Well, he's not so newborn now, he was born in August, but it was a gift for him once he was born. And I got it done, I think in September or October, because I finished it at our Halifax Stitch social event for October, and I was able to get it all done up and given to someone who is going to take it down to the States for her because she lives in the States, and it makes it easier for me to have someone to deliver it to her rather than pay to ship it down there. So I was very happy that I could avoid the high shipping costs. But hopefully she will be getting that this week because the person delivering it is going down for American Thanksgiving, which is this week, not last week. Like I said, it was in my 20 free knitting patterns that you could knit in time for Christmas. I goofed so bad when I did that recording. I don't know why. I was convinced that last week was American Thanksgiving and that last Friday was Black Friday, because I kept seeing Black Friday sales on websites everywhere I looked, so I was kind of tricked into it. But when Thursday came around and none of my American friends were wishing each other happy Thanksgiving, I realized, oh no, I'm off by a week. And then I looked at the calendar and that's it. I was wrong. Thanksgiving is this week that you're watching this video. And if I get this up the day that I usually upload, American Thanksgiving was yesterday and Black Friday is today. But that is the other project that I worked on. That one was knit using some Red Door Fiber Studios Tweedy DK. This is yarn that I have had in my stash since 2022. And I bought it from Kate when she was just getting rid of some extras that she had when she was dyeing up her tweed base on the Akatar colors of Cursebreaker, which is Feta's beautiful maroon burgundy color, and Truth Teller, which is the Azriel sort of like deep blue, almost navy color. And I did choose to do Truth Teller as the main color and Cursebreaker as the striping color because I thought that the stripes looked better because Cursebreaker was just the tiniest bit lighter than Truth Teller. And I think that stripes, my favorite types of stripes are lighter ones on dark. So I thought that it looked better that way. But I was able to use that up and gift it to my cousin, and hopefully soon I will be getting a picture of what it looks like on her baby. I'm so excited to see it, and I hope it fits him. My husband Doyle didn't just get an emotional support chicken from me this past season, he also got a new hat. He wanted an orange classic ribbed hat. Well, he just said he wanted an orange beanie. I'm the one that chose the classic ribbed hat pattern by Pearl Soho. And he wanted it because one of his favorite YouTubers wears a hat this color in their videos, although we found out that the store-bought hat that the YouTuber wears is more of a mustard yellow color, and under their studio lights, it looks more orange. And Doyle said he wanted orange, not yellow. So I knit this up for him, and I managed to finish it in the fall. This was one of those projects that I brought up because of Dungeons and Knitting, and I managed to get it done because of that series. Because I believe I was working on this one right before going to my October Stitch social meetup, and I managed to finish this at that meetup and then also finish the baby Henley because both of those projects were very close to being done. And that probably wouldn't have happened without doing my Dungeons and Knitting series. So it was so exciting to be able to whiz through so many of my whips that were either close to being finished or were small whips anyway, and it didn't take very long to work on. This one is knit using Hobie's Unicorn Solid yarn, and I believe the color is caramel. And this one was one that I held fingering weight double for this one, and it creates such a beautiful cozy hat. I did have to modify the classic ribbed hat pattern a little bit just because I was using thicker yarn. I find that that pattern's a little interesting because it says that it is for a DK weight yarn, but you're supposed to use, I think, 3.75 millimeter needles, I believe, or maybe it's 4 millimeter needles. Anyway, it's quite small needles for DK yarn, and I don't like using a very stiff gauge. I find it's too hard on my hands. So I modified this one to be, it's either the adult small or the like child large size, whatever the number, whatever the name of the size. I cast it on 96 stitches for this one instead of the, I believe I usually cast on 112 stitches for that pattern, or 108 stitches maybe. So I did go down a number of stitches and up a needle size. I believe I used 4.5 millimeter needles for this because I wanted to get a really nice gauge. This is 100% merino yarn. It's keeping Doyle's head nice and cozy. He was actually kind of disappointed that I took it from him to show in this video because he's currently wearing it, but I needed to show it off in this video. And now for my last finished whip from the fall. And this one I find so funny because I mentioned it as an offhand comment in my fall knitting plans video as just being another whip that I was bringing out of hibernation. And I don't even think I remembered the name of the pattern, but it's my See My Vest Chunky, which this is such a cozy vest. I'm loving this so much. I'm getting a lot of wear out of it. It's incredibly soft and warm. I'm going to include some photos here of me wearing it simply because I can't show very much where I'm sitting here. But I absolutely love this pattern. And it's one that was a free pattern on Ravelry. It uses, well, in the name chunky, it's a bulky weight yarn. I ended up holding a strand of merino worsted, which is Ravenswood Fiber Co. in the color Evening's Glow on the Grass, with a strand of Surrey alpaca from Bumblebee Acre Fiber Farms, their spun sugar Surrey in the color Spell on You. And it created just this gorgeous brown, burgundy, maroon color. It's so many of my favorite fall colors all rolled into one. And I think using the variegated merino as well as the variegated Surrey meant that there's no color pooling at all. It's really nicely spread out. It just almost looks like static in a very good way. So I'm one of those people that I don't play around with swapping skeins or doing whatever I need to try and minimize pooling. I just go with the yarn the way that it is in the skein. I'm not really fussy about that. I don't love color pooling, but if that's what's going to happen knitting a strand of yarn, that's just what's going to happen. But I love that this one, it really blended so nicely, and I really get so much wear out of this, and I'm constantly looking for new ways to wear it. So this one has become a wardrobe favorite, and I'm going to wear it well into the winter as well, because this actually goes quite nicely with a lot of my sweaters. I have a really beautiful raspberry red sweater that I finished last year. I have burnt orange, kind of like fox color from the year before. I have a brown sweater. This is gonna look so great layered over those sweaters when it's really cold out and I want added warmth and layers. This will be perfect for that. And it's really whetted my appetite for more knitted vests. So I definitely want to knit some more in the future. I have a few on my favorites list, but I just haven't solidified on the next one that I want to knit yet. Now let's take a look at the projects that I didn't finish in the fall but said that I wanted to work on. These are continuing into the winter as continuing whips. And the first one I'm just going to mention offhand is my care sweater, which I'm not going to show because it looks really similar to the last time you saw it. So I don't really want to take up time showing it off. But I'm continuing to work on that. It's just hard on my hands because of the rustic yarn, and it's quite a stiff, tough gauge. But I do want to get that done. It'd be nice if it got finished in the winter, but I'm not holding my breath. This is a project that's going to take a couple years because of my yarn choice. But I'm really happy with it. I think it looks great, and I'm just going to keep plugging away at it. The rest of my whips I'm going to show you, including some that are new. Starting with one that is an old one. I've been working on this one for a couple years, and I'm really hopeful that I can finish this in the winter. It's my Bibliophile 2 by Alicia Plummer. This one I have made really significant progress on. I started the Bibliophile originally in 2024. And it's one that the first time that I knit it, there were some issues with the sizing and with the armhole and the fit and everything. And I had a wonderful chat with Alicia, and she completely reworked the larger sizes. And this one is now using the new numbers. And I really want to get this one finished so that I can have a sample that I can talk about and share how well those new numbers are fitting. So this is what I have done so far. I have the whole body done. I have bound off, and this is one of the longer sweater bodies that I've done in a long time because I really wanted this to be kind of a hip-length sweater. Wanted it to be something that I would wear with jeans. A lot of my other sweaters are cropped because I wear them with my high-waisted skirts and pants. And I've also made some progress on the first sleeve. So the striping doesn't look exactly the same because this was on a big circumference. This is now on a smaller circumference. I'm hopeful that I can get all of the colors. So pink, green, blue. I am down to my last little bit of yarn with that sweater because I remembered after I was talking about it in my podcast episode where I said I had to find that missing ball of yarn. I clued into the fact that that missing ball of yarn is all in little pieces because I was trying to keep that color gradient the same going down the body. So I took some yarn from it, and anytime there was a factory knot, it ruined that color gradient. So I kind of had to pick and choose some more yarns from that fourth ball that I was looking for. So what I did was I took my final complete ball that I had and I divvied it up into two balls, and thankfully they ended up being almost exactly the same weight, and I have wound them up into the same color gradient, so it goes pink, green, blue. So I'm going to see how much I can get out of each of those balls. So I'll knit the first one that I'm already working on until I run out of that initial half skein ball. Then I'll pick up the second sleeve, do the same thing, see where they are, the length of the sleeves, and then I have a lot of green left, so maybe I'll just use green for the bottom of the sleeves. I'm going to deviate from the pattern a little bit with this, and I'm just going to do straight sleeves. I know that on my Dartmoor sweater, which is my orange sweater, I kind of don't like the big sleeves because they get caught on everything, but I think this is going to work with the wider cuff sleeves, because the Dartmoor sweater is knit using a strand of fingering and a strand of mohair. I really kind of went off gauge for that. I was trying to like mimic the gauge of the Lento sweater on those big needles, but this is a worsted weight yarn on 4mm needles, so US size 6. So this is a much smaller gauge, so I don't think it's going to be quite so loose and drapey. But I thought it would just be really nice because I feel that that's kind of the style these days, is loose, boxy, that type of thing. And I just thought it would give a really nice style to this sweater as a whole. And especially if I'm going to be wearing it with jeans and stuff like that, it's going to be more casual. It's going to be dressed down. So I thought that would be a fun modification. And I'm really looking forward to getting this one finished because it's getting close to being finished. I've been working on it for a while. And I have a video idea coming up that I want to do with this one and my next whip that I'm going to show you. The next whip that I'm still working on is my Tulsta Tee by Rebecca Clow. This is a pattern that started as a different pattern. Before Doyle and I went to Portugal last year, I casted on the Tulsta Tank by Rebecca Clow in this yarn. And I casted that on because it was just a little bit of ribbing at the bottom, which I did before we left, and then just knitting straight in the round for about, I think, 12 or 14 inches before you had to do anything. And I thought that's great for taking away. It's just going to be a simple stockinette in the round project to take on our trip. And I honestly didn't get a ton of work on it on our trip because we were just going everywhere, doing a lot of exploring, really wearing ourselves out with that exploring during the day. So I honestly didn't knit very much, but it was helpful for when we were on the train and everything and traveling places. So when I got home, I kind of forgot what size I had cast it on, what I was doing. So I just looked at the pattern again and I assumed, based on the information that was available, that I had done the size 6. So I followed all of the back decreases for size 6 because I was ready to split at that point, only to realize I wasn't doing size 6 at all. I was doing size 5. So my decreases looked really, really weird, and it didn't look at all like it was supposed to look with the pattern. And I realized afterwards I could have just gone back to where that split was, but when I looked at the measurements of size 5 versus size 6, I did not want to be knitting size 5. That was too small for me. I wanted size 6. And I thought to myself, I don't think I really want to redo this sweater, this tank top from the bottom up. I think I would rather have a t-shirt in this yarn. So I then casted on the Tulsta Tee, which I have finally put on a larger cord so you can actually see that it is a full-blown t-shirt. I have now finished the sleeves, which I did do a modification for. The original pattern has very short cap sleeves, and I did knit this pattern last year, or just earlier this year, but it feels like last year because it was last winter. And I found that I didn't like how short they were, because whenever I would raise my arm, because there was only 1 inch to the sleeve, it would pull the whole t-shirt up with it because there wasn't extra length to the fabric on the sleeves. So this time around, I have made my sleeves longer. I have done 4 inches on the sleeves before doing the, I believe it's a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch cuff in ribbing. So I did make my sleeves a little longer. I'm really happy with that. Right now they kind of end a little more than halfway down my bicep, and I'm hoping with blocking that they will come down just to right above my elbow, which is what I would like with this t-shirt. I'm really seeing this as being an office shirt to wear, and I think that would be a really great length. I still have a bit to go on the body. It looks like I don't. It looks like there's only just a little bit more to go. But when I try this on, it's like way up to here. So I could definitely use some more length to the body. I believe I still need at least 5 inches, but I feel like that's not going to take me too long. This is great car knitting. This is great like TV knitting because it's just stockinette in the round. Don't have to pay attention to any increasing or decreasing. It's just straightforward. So those are the first 2 of 4 garments that I am carrying into the winter for my winter knitting plans. They are the priority. These next 2 are a slightly lower priority, but I would still like to get lots of progress on them. One of which I would like to have finished by the end of January, but we'll see if that happens. The first is one that you have seen before. It is my Oxford cardigan by Tricot Design MCL. That is Marie-Christine Levesque. She is one of my favorite designers, and she's local to me. She is in New Brunswick, and I'm in Nova Scotia. And I'm just realizing now I am mid-row, so this is going to look kind of funky when I show it off. But this is what I have so far on my Oxford cardigan. I would put it on a hanger, but I'm still in the midst of doing the shoulder increases, and I think it might look just a little weird on a hanger. So I'll just hold it up with my hands. But I love this one so much. It is so bright and colorful. I don't think I've ever mentioned this, but I am knitting this one to replace a store-bought cardigan that I have in the same color that I have sized out of. I love this bright yellow. This mustard yellow is what I normally go for. It's going to go so nicely with my dress that I'm currently wearing. I haven't talked about any of my sewing yet, but this will be something I talk about when I get to my little sewing segment. And this is just going to be something that I'll get so much wear out of because I love this color and I have so many things in my wardrobe that go with it. I don't know how I feel about the yarns yet. I kind of wish I had gone with yarns that are not quite so bulky because I do believe my gauge is a little thick. Yes, I have met gauge. I've met gauge perfectly, but I don't know how I feel about the thickness of the fabric. This is holding 2 strands of yarn together. I'm doing Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk and Filcolana Alva. Both of them are in the color Curry. They are both curry yellows, and the Alva is great. The Alva is like super thin, but the Brushed Alpaca Silk is such a thick Surrey style yarn. And I think I always underestimate how thick it is. If I remember back, I knit Marie's romance cardigan for my wedding cardigan, and I used that same yarn held single, and that was like the perfect ethereal cloud-like feel. I do wish with this one that I had held the Alva double and not one of the Alva and one of the Drops Brushed Alpaca, because I'm finding it rather thick. So I think this is not going to be the nice thin office cardigan that I'm hoping it will be. I think this would be more of like a casual, almost jacket-like cardigan, which is still absolutely great. And I will get a lot of wear out of that. I just don't think I'm gonna get as much like office wear out of it because it's gonna feel a little bulky for the office. But it's still going to be a wonderful pattern, and I'm just plugging away at it. I'm still doing some increasing on the sleeves. I'm just at the part of the yoke where there's so many stitches and it takes so long to get through it. But I did get a couple of rows in on it this past weekend. I'm recording this on Sunday, so I am just plugging away at it. It's just a slow going project at the moment. And now for my final garment whip. This one is in an even smaller state than the Oxford cardigan. This is the flax sweater. And if you've ever seen the flax sweater, and I'm putting a picture on screen right now, it doesn't really look like a flax sweater. But that's because I am basing my flax sweater on the Turtle Poof by Beata Jezik, or Beta Jezik. Not entirely sure on pronunciation there, of Hedgehog Fibers, which is a free pattern, but I chose to go with the flax instead because the Turtle Poof is knit using their alpaca boucle yarn, and it just reacts so different compared to other yarns that I felt it was in my better interest to pick another pattern that used yarn at a larger sized yarn, same gauge type thing, and I would probably have more success than if I tried to use the yarn that I'm using to match the pattern of the Turtle Poof. But I am following the same style of that pattern because I wanted a big cozy turtleneck. Not necessarily a turtleneck, more like a cowl neck. This one's going to be really big, and when I block this, I'm going to really stretch out that collar so that it's really nice and wide. The flax sweater is done either, you can start with the collar or you can add the collar later. Knowing I wanted to do a turtleneck and that I am using a variety of yarns that I am fading, I chose to start with the collar and do a long double folded turtleneck. I am using some yarns that have been in my stash for a long time. I've had these yarns since either 2016 or 2017, and they are from a now defunct yarn company called We Love Knitting, which is based out of Australia. They specialized in neon pastels, and I purchased their BFF fade, I believe is what it's called. I'll put a picture here of the fade. And I also bought another yarn that fit into the middle of that fade so that I would have 4 skeins instead of 3 because I wanted to do a sweater with them. I decided to hold a strand of Knit Picks Aloft, which is just a white mohair with this, just because I wanted it to be really lofty, very open gauged kind of, but the mohair would kind of fill in, kind of going with like lento style gauge, although this is smaller needles than a lento. These are 5mm needles. The lento would usually be 6 to 6.5. So I am doing a smaller size needle, but I'm getting a similar style of fabric. I have so far only done the turtleneck and the very beginning of the yoke, which you can see down here. Now, different from some patterns that I've done, the flax actually doesn't do the short rows until the bottom of the raglan. So I don't have any short rows yet, and I won't do those until the very end of the raglan. And that's okay. I haven't done that in a while. I would like to see how it fits differently than a sweater that does the raglan shaping right at the top of the neck. This is a pattern that I've only cast on recently, and I was slowed down because I had to do this turtleneck twice. The first time that I did it, I went with a 4mm needle, I believe, for the ribbed turtleneck, because that's my go-to whenever I pick a yarn and a needle combo for the body of a sweater. I'll typically go down 2 needle sizes if I'm going to be doing ribbing of any sort. Forgetting that was like my automatic reaction, which is why I started with that for the turtleneck. Forgetting that I was modeling this after the Turtle Poof, which uses the same size needle for ribbing and stockinette fabric, because you want to have a loose and open ribbed collar. So I had to knit my turtleneck twice, which is why this isn't as far along as I would like it to be, but I am really enjoying it. I think the color is so fun. It's such a pretty light pink, and I am excited to see how this is going to knit up. I still haven't decided how I want to transition from color to color. I might just do like a couple of rows of striping. I'm thinking that I might be able to get at least most of the raglan done with this one color. I would ideally like to do the short rows only in one color, so hopefully I will either have enough of this left to do all the short rows in pink, or I will already have switched to the next kind of like pinky purple color and be able to do the short rows in that color so that I'm not thinking about changing yarn colors and striping during that time, because that might be a little too much for my brain. Now the last 3 of my winter whips are all accessories, starting with my Schlia mittens. These are a pattern that I cast on, I believe, in the springtime, and I put them on my Dungeons and Knitting list when I created my first list, and I managed to finish the first one. These are a pair of ribbed and cabled mittens, fingerless mittens, and I have made one modification to the pattern. I have knit my thumb gusset a little shorter than they recommended in the pattern because I have short little stubby fingers and I wanted to have my full thumb able to still come out. And I'm going to also add some elastic around the very last row here. I'm just gonna like sew in some sewing thread elastic just to sort of cinch it up a bit to keep it nice and tight around my fingers. And I need to get started on mitten number 2 because so far I've only finished 1 and I would like to have these in the winter time. I could definitely use the warmth on my hands, especially as we get into some colder weather and I don't necessarily want to wear very big, thick mittens. I would like to wear my thin little store-bought mittens and then put these over top for some added warmth. But I think I would like to get these ones done in the winter as well, but it's one of many accessories that are taking my attention right now. Now, my last 2 accessories that I'm working on are both brand new cast-ons, starting with my classic ribbed hat by Purl Soho. I just can't keep this pattern off of my needles. And this one, I've gone back to the original way that I knit this pattern, which is on 3.5 millimeter needles, so that's US 4. And this is some fingering weight. This one is Nerds with Needles. They're sparkly base, which I can't remember the name of right now, in the color Earth Magic. And Nerds with Needles is actually local to me. I bought this at HalCon last year, and I cast it on this pattern to work on while I was at HalCon this year, because I like to have something simple to work on to help me while I'm waiting in lines, to help me when I'm feeling anxious, to help pass the time when I'm waiting for a show to begin or something like that. So this was such a great help during the weekend. And this is now just going in the background. I'm not necessarily going to bring this out for every seasonal knitting plans video unless it gets finished. My last accessory pattern is one that is so out of character for me, but I'm having so much fun working on it. I have cast on and completed half of a sock. I believe I'm following the Melbourne Socks pattern, and I'm blanking on the designer's name right now, but it's just a simple cuff down stockinette sock knit on small needles, and I believe like just fingering weight yarn. This is fingering weight yarn. This is Red Door Fiber Studios. This is from her Akatar collection. I've had this since 2021. This is her More colorway. So the variegated red is To Hell with a Reputation, and the gold is You're Free. And More is my favorite character in Akatar, other than like Farah and Reese, of course. But More is my absolute favorite character in the series, and I felt that this would spur me on to knit the whole sock and knit the second sock if I was using yarn inspired by her, because it's yarn that I really want to use and that I really want to wear. And honestly, this is incredibly soft. I'm actually really excited to get to wear these socks. I just turned my heel last night and I did a standard heel flap and gusset. Hopefully it shows up. It's a slip stitch heel. I do find that the very bottom of the heel, this part here, is a little saggy. Like it doesn't hug my foot like the rest of the sock does. The leg hugs my leg really nicely. I'm doing 64 stitches because in the past when I've done sock patterns and I've chosen my amount of stitches based on the size of my foot, they've all ended up being too big, and I really don't like big baggy socks. So the last pair that I made, I ended up giving to my husband and they fit him perfectly. So great, he's got a pair of socks that he just wears around the house because they're thick DK socks. I felt that I really owed it to myself to give proper sock knitting a try on like using fingering weight yarn on the teeny tiny needles, and I'm really happy with how this is looking. I love how the leg fits. I did make a little boo-boo when I was doing my heel flap and gusset because I did forget a slip knit on one side, and I just did it on a different row, so it just kind of goes like in the line of stitches, but you really can't see it, and honestly, it's a sock. It's gonna go on my foot. Doesn't really matter. But I am now onto the foot, just again knitting in the round. I am doing magic loop. I absolutely despise DPNs and I will not use them. The only time I'll use DPNs is if I'm like doing the crown decreases on a hat where the circle has already been made and I'm just going down. But I do prefer magic loop instead. I also like Addi Flexi Flips. I have tried doing these small 9-inch circular needles before. They're so hard on my hands. I really can't do them because you have to like have your hands almost in a claw shape, and I just get so much hand pain. So I try and avoid those unless I'm like doing something where magic loop is a little trickier, and then I'll go for those. But in general, I don't mind magic loop. This was my first time starting something on magic loop, like starting a circle on magic loop, because when I've done socks before, I've done toe up, so it starts flat and then becomes an in the round shape as you increase out the toe. And I was a little skeptical at first because the first 2 rows, you have such a big gap between your first stitch and your last stitch, which is what's always scared me about starting circles in knitting, either with magic loop or DPNs or whatnot. But I just said to myself, trust the process, get through it, and I did. And honestly, they turned out really great. I'm also impressed that I don't think I have ladders. It's like teeny tiny laddering, but honestly, I don't care. It's a sock. It's going on my foot. And I really just worked really hard at pulling my first and second stitch on each needle very tightly whenever I switched from one needle to the next. But that is my first, I'd say like bona fide attempt at a sock. And I'm surprising myself by saying I'm enjoying the heck out of this. I did not expect that, but I actually really like it. Now, before I get into some hopeful cast-ons for the winter, I do want to do a short little segment on some sewing that I did in the fall, because this wasn't mentioned in my fall knitting plans because it's not knitting, it's sewing, but it is a large reason why I don't have as many things completed, like large things completed, as I wanted to. I have things that I completed early on in the fall that were all little projects, but I haven't made too big of a dent in a lot of my big projects. And that's because I would say for about a 4 to 5 week period covering mid-October to early November, I was working on a sewing project. I was sewing my costume for HalCon, and I'll put some pictures here. This is my Hera Hammerhand cosplay. If that is gibberish to you, she is a character from the animated Lord of the Rings movie that came out last December called War of the Rohirrim. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is such a good movie. I'm one of those people that I love animated movies, and I think there are some excellent stories that can be told through animation, and this is one of them. The world of Lord of the Rings is so incredible. It's one that I've always loved. Well, I've loved since I was old enough to not be scared of it. When the original movies came out, I was still too young for them and they scared me, so I never saw them in theaters. But I love them now as an adult. And I remember going to see War of the Rohirrim last December and just being blown away. Because first of all, this movie featured a female heroine. Now, the really sticklery fans of Lord of the Rings have a problem with it because Hera isn't from the source material. But if we look at the source material of J.R.R. Tolkien, he doesn't write a lot of female characters. And when he does write female characters, they're not front and center. They are always a side character or an accessory to a male character. So I don't mind that Hera is not from the source material. The world and the time and the events are from the source material. And I think it's high time that we have more badass female characters in the Lord of the Rings world. And Hera was one of those characters. I just fell in love with her the moment I saw this movie. She was so incredible. She was brave. She was strong. She was flawed. She wasn't perfect. And she's just one of those characters that as soon as I saw her, I loved her and I knew I wanted to cosplay as her. Her biggest outfit in the movie, like her one that I'd say is the most recognizable, is the wedding dress that she wears into battle at the end of the movie. It's also on the poster of the movie, but I couldn't bear to spend months or weeks making a pattern, sewing it from scratch, only to destroy it. I could not wrap my head around that. So instead of doing her battle dress, I chose to do her green banquet dress, which was such a big project for me. And I'm so incredibly proud of the work that I did. I definitely burnt myself out a little bit on sewing because I was sewing anywhere from, I'd say, 2 or 3 hours a day, upwards to almost 10 hours a day on the weekends on this project. And it was just so much time, so much energy, so much effort. I absolutely love the results and I was so proud of it. And then I went to HalCon and nobody knew who I was because I must have been one of only 20 people who saw this movie. But I love this movie so much, and that's the cool thing about HalCon is it's your opportunity to showcase the things that you love and that you are a fan of. So it did dull my sparkle a little bit not having anybody recognize who I was. I had a couple people think that I was Princess Fiona or Merida from Brave, but it's okay. I was just happy to be in a beautiful costume that I sewed myself from scratch. I was so proud of the choices that I made for that project, of all the work that I put into it. It's going to be my Halloween costume next year. It can also double as just being a medieval queen outfit. It's just so beautiful, and it definitely is going to be one that I'm very proud to have in my costume closet. Now you'd think with all of that sewing for my costume for Hera, I would say, okay, now I want to break from sewing. Well, during the last week or so that I was working on my costume, I saw an announcement for a sewing test come up. One of my friends shared the tester call for the Petal Dress by Soft Body Studio. And this was a dress that as soon as I saw the drawing, I thought, that's so unique, that's so pretty, I would love to make that. And I sort of filed it away as maybe when it's out, I'll buy it and I'll make it. And then there was another tester call saying that the designer was really looking for larger testers. They still needed a few for the larger sizes. And I was one of those sizes. And I thought, okay, it's a 3-week test, which if you're used to knitting test timelines, that sounds insane. But it's actually a good timeline for a sewing test because sewing, especially when I looked at the dress, it is sleeveless. It's a fairly simple construction. It was one that I felt very comfortable doing. 3 weeks sounded normal. So the first week I was still working on my Hera costume. And then immediately after HalCon, I thought, I need a break. So I took a couple of days break, but I was still I'd already cut out my pattern for the petal dress and I just needed to cut out my fabric and then get to sewing. And I ended up finishing it just the other day. So I did have a couple of hiccups because I am a beginner sewist and I had some really great back and forth with Kaya, the designer, and I 100% recommend her as a designer. The thing is about the petal dress is I just don't think the style suits me perfectly. I love the fabric that I chose. I love the color bias binding that I used, but I think the shape is just not right for me. I will put some pictures up here of what it looks like because I just took some pictures today. I think the pattern is beautiful. It's really fun. It's an interesting construction. I would love to attempt it in the future with some tweaks. And I have ordered some fabric to make for Christmas using this pattern, but tweaking it a little bit. And I just saw a version today of someone who used a thrifted button-up shirt for the bodice portion, and it looks so cool. So I would love to do that at some point too. I just think I need to make a couple of tweaks to make me feel more comfortable in this dress because it's kind of big and loose and baggy right around the middle, which is where I am the largest on my body. And I just don't feel super confident in this shape. It's not something that makes me feel really myself. So it's something that I've seen a lot of people wear, and I'm finding that like these sort of like just loose and baggy dresses are now more in fashion, and it's really comfortable. Like I've been wearing this one all day and it's great. I just don't feel confident in this shape, so I think I need to make a couple of tweaks to make it more fit me and my style. But highly recommend the pattern if this is your particular style. So with all of these whips coming into the winter from my fall knitting plans, you're probably thinking, Whitney, you can't possibly be thinking about casting on more projects. Well, I am. But I am only thinking of casting on some accessory projects. And these were fully inspired by my video that I released last week, which is free patterns that you can knit in time for Christmas. So these are all free patterns that are quick to knit that hopefully I can make before it gets truly wintry here in Nova Scotia. The first of these that I want to cast on is the Cozy Winter Cap by Dreadful Velvet Designs. I love that designer name. I think it's so cute. And this is one that I'm going to be using some stash yarn for. I have some yarn that is left over from two projects that I only have little bits left of each of them, and it's the perfect color that I would want to make this pattern in. I am going to be using some yarn left over from my Eclair Raglan sweater, which I call my Fera sweater, and my Romance cardigan that I made for my wedding. Both of those are cream yarns, and I think cream looks so good with my complexion. That's why I chose this particular color for my Romance cardigan, and also my wedding dress was cream, because I can't wear like a bright white other than like a long sleeve t-shirt like I'm wearing now underneath something else. I am not really a bright white person. It does kind of make me look quite pale. Cream is a lot nicer for me. It really kind of warms my skin tone. But I just have them in this plastic bag because it's currently in a frogged state and I have all kinds of little ends here. And I thought I really want to try and use all those little bits and pieces for the Cozy Winter Cap because it's not a very big knitted piece, and I feel that this would be great for using up those little tiny scraps. So that's one thing that I want to cast on and hopefully finish by the winteriest part of winter, I guess. And the second pattern that I want to make that is also from that list is the Hood Scarf by Victoria Fedorova. I hope I pronounced correctly. This is a worsted weight garter stitch scarf with a hood. And this is one that it's a free pattern that's very bare bones because it's translated from another language, but I can get by enough to make it work. I didn't take a super close look at it before I put it on my list last week, so I was kind of thinking, oh, that's not quite up to the standard that I usually would include in my list, but I really want one of these hooded scarves, and I do think that that's a really nice one. I love the resulting version of it, and I saw quite a lot of versions on Ravelry that looked really nice, so I'm sure once I take a closer look at it, maybe write myself some notes, it's not going to be that difficult to make. That pattern uses a worsted weight yarn, and I actually don't have any solid or tonal worsted yarn in my stash that has that amount of yardage needed for the pattern that I wouldn't be stealing from another pattern that I have in my queue. So I don't have a worsted yarn that I want to use, but I did find these yarns in my stash. These are from Chromatic Yarns. Her name is Hannah. She's in the UK. I believe her Instagram is now Chromatic Yarns, but on YouTube she goes by the Corner of Craft. So, but I think her website is Chromatic Yarns, but they are from her Legends and Lattes collection. And the color is Cinnamon Roll. If you don't know anything about me, I absolutely love cinnamon rolls. They are my favorite food, one of my favorite foods. And I absolutely loved these orangey brown colors. I just think they're so beautiful. I got these from her overstock sale when she had finished dyeing that collection and she had some leftovers. So I got one skein of merino sock and 2 skeins of fluffy lace. Now my original plan was to try and make some sort of a pattern that was mostly the lace with a little bit of edging with the merino sock. But the pattern that I had in mind, the more I looked at it, the more I thought, I don't think I have enough yarn for that. And it would suck to get most of the way through that because it was a bottom-up pattern and realize that I don't have enough and then be stuck trying to frog mohair. So when I was looking in my stash for something that might work for the hood scarf, I realized this is really perfect because if I hold all 3 of these together, that's going to get me a really nice gauge and it's going to make it really nice and cozy for the winter to keep out those really harsh cold winds. So I think this is also going to be a great color for me. So that is my other winter knitting cast-on plan. And that wraps up my list of my winter knitting plans. Similar to what I said in my winter plans last year, I do also have some filming plans for December. I have at least 2 videos that I want to bring out in December. I, again, am not doing Vlogmas. I did it for 2 years and that was plenty for me, so I am never going to do Vlogmas again. So that's not happening in December. But I will have 2 videos coming out. I will have another Advent patterns release that I have done annually at this point. I have found some more Advent patterns that are all size inclusive garments and I'm very excited about my list this year. There's some brand new ones that have just been released in the past year. And I have my Everything I Knit in 2025 video coming out at the end of December. I'm still undecided if I'll have something come out in the middle because I do have another video idea that I'm thinking of doing, but time will tell if I have the time to do it, if I even want to bother putting that out in December. December is kind of a hard month to get your content seen because there's such a plethora of Vlogmas content coming out. So I don't know if I really want to put in the effort for that or if I just want to wait till maybe sometime in the winter to do that video. But time will tell. If I feel like making it, I'm going to make it. But if I don't, I won't. Thank you so much for sticking it out till the end of this video. I know this one was a bit of a long one because I had so much to show you and I am really excited about my winter knitting plans. I am hopeful that I'll make some progress on some of my bigger whips that didn't necessarily get a lot of progress on them when I was doing Dungeons and Knitting, but I'm going to keep doing that series over the next couple of months. I'm really enjoying doing that. And I'm very excited to see that a couple of my other friends here on YouTube and on Instagram have also taken up that style of video series. So it's exciting to see them use this same sort of gamification for their own whips. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. It really means a lot to me. While you're here, it would help my channel if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please leave me a comment below. Do you like some of the whips that I'm working on? Do you think I'm crazy for casting on even more projects for the winter? What are you working on for your knitting plans in the winter? Let's have a great conversation in the comments. As always, if you would like to support my channel in any way, I do have a link to my Ravelry wish list, as well as a couple of affiliate links in the description box below, but there's never any pressure to do so, only if you would like to. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you all take care, and happy winter knitting!